Hi, welcome to Tea with Tom once again. Everybody loves a good murder mystery, don't they? Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Lupus Anticoagulant Paradox today. Um, this is still a mystery and it hasn't been solved. When I first started in the coagulation laboratory, I worked in a haemophilia clinic and we looked for inhibitors of factor VIII, which cause bleeding. And we occasionally came across these patients who had an inhibitor which affected several clotting factors, but they didn't bleed and they didn't have haemophilia. They hadn't been treated with factor VIII. So it was a bit of a mystery what this anticoagulant was. Anyway, to investigate this, I decided to, with my buddies at the hospital, major teaching hospital, we decided that we found out, I suppose, that phospholipid was very important, and if we left out the phospholipid from the old PTTK test, which is a precursor of the APTT, if we left out the phospholipid, the test became much more sensitive for this particular inhibitor. And it turns out they'd been discovered before. They're called lupus inhibitors, even though they're only present in about 30% of patients who have lupus. Anyway, this particular patient who had it finished up on a slab. And I always wondered why she developed thrombosis. And in fact, it's still not known. When a patient has an anticoagulant and has prolonged clotting tests, why do they develop blood clots? It doesn't make sense. Lupus anticoagulants are now known to be antibodies directed against not just phospholipid, but also phospholipid binding proteins such as beta-2-glycoprotein 1 and prothrombin itself. Cryptic epitopes on these antigens are what causes lupus anticoagulants to have their effect. But we don't know why they thrombose. They obviously upset what is called the thrombohemorrhagic balance. Long word, that's just the balance between clotting or thrombosis on the one hand and bleeding on the other. Bleeding is associated with long clotting tests. Clotting is usually associated with short clotting tests. Lupus anticoagulants cause thrombosis? Doesn't make sense. So why is it so? A number of hypotheses have been developed. The first one was that phospholipids can overcome lupus anticoagulants. So perhaps phospholipids from platelets are generated in excess in these patients, and they simply overcome the anticoagulant effect and cause thrombosis. This doesn't actually work out when you figure out how much phospholipid you need in the circumstances. Another hypothesis was that there is interference by these antiphospholipid antibodies with phospholipids involved with the generation of prostacyclin, which is a powerful antithrombotic agent released by the endothelial cells. Once again, this hypothesis did not prove out. This was shown not to be correct in most circumstances. Then the next most popular theory was that lupus anticoagulants might interfere with the protein C pathway, which is an antithrombotic mechanism which involves phospholipids. But once again, the evidence there is inconclusive, and this is not quite right. We know a lot of these patients have got inhibitors of fibrinolysis present, which may contribute to the thrombosis. We know that it also requires complement for this procoagulant mechanism to work. But these are not complete, so we still don't know. But I fully believe that unless we solve this riddle, this paradox, we won't really have a good, complete understanding of how blood clotting tests work and how they can be useful in predicting thrombosis or bleeding. So there are new tests, but that may be for a different time. So thank you very much for watching, and watch out for that lupus paradox. Thank you.